This podcast is the sole property of Prowled Sports. Our thoughts and opinions are our own.
Yeah. They say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Make way for the king.
What's up, everybody? Beck here with you. The Proud Panthers podcast, home for everything High Point University basketball on Teed Off Sports and teedoffsports.com at Stephen Beck TO. A great way to follow along with me at Tito Sports for the site and for the podcast at Proud Panthers. As our High Point University basketball season comes to an end, I won't lie to you. I had a hard time kind of getting in the seat here to piece this together. And it's not because I'm not Prowled. I am super Prowled to be a Panther. It's just it's hard when you really love something and it has to come to an end. I mean, that's honestly the best way I know to put it. I'm sure it's similar emotions for other Panthers fans that have been deeply invested throughout the season. I'm sure it's similar emotions that, different members of the High Point University family that have been so entrenched in the basketball program this year feel. It could be cheer staff. It could be dance teams. It could be band members. It could be, support staff, players on the roster. I'm sure they feel it. Coaches on the staff probably feel that as well. So it's just it's a little difficult to kind of wrap my head around things right now, but we're going to try to give it a go the best we can because it is it is something that kind of needs a bow put on it, at least for a short time frame. And then we will probably break a little bit before trying to debrief, maybe is a good way to put it, with different members of the team, some of the coaches. We recently heard from athletic director Dan Hauser. If you missed that, I still think that's a great discussion to go back and listen to because it involves other things like scheduling and what really our High Point University basketball program has done now for my beloved alma mater and university. Today, we'll jump in to try to break down a little bit of what transpired in the most recent game for our Panthers, where they lost in the round of 32 to a really good Arkansas team. That will come up for you here in just a second.
High Point University, the premier life skills university, is ranked the #1 best-run college in America by the Princeton Review. Employers value HPU's real-world preparation. Students love unprecedented access to global leaders on High Point's inspiring campus. And parents appreciate HPU's God, family, and country values. Choose to be extraordinary at High Point University.
Back on a fresh Proud Panthers podcast. As I said, I'm Beck here with you, and you can know for certain that I'm going to be right here for you again. As long as folks are enjoying the Proud Panthers podcast and will have me, and it helps and benefits our basketball program and our university, man, I'm super grateful that folks have followed, listened, been a part of this, been guests. I mean, all the different things that go into it. And so looking forward to what would be some new things to come in the future that I've been working on in the background, and looking forward to more just High Point University basketball fans and discussion around it. But the season did come to an end in Portland over the weekend. Real late night game for us on the East Coast between High Point and Arkansas. Our Panthers coming in already shocking the nation, really being the story of the NCAA tournament. A newfound nationwide, honestly, NCAA March Madness, Twitter, Instagram, social media may not be able to really put it any better than saying America's team, a post that they put up with Chase Johnston kind of at the front of a boat, I guess like a playoff of George Washington's old historical image, it seems. So, we took the whole country by storm after a big upset win over Wisconsin, a 12 beating a 5 seed. Now, as we record this Proud Panthers podcast, there's been a few additional upsets thrown in. Iowa knocked off the defending national champion Florida Gators. I know that Virginia also lost out of the tournament in an upset fashion as well. St. John's beat Kansas. So as we put this together, the NCAA tournament finishing up its first full weekend of games, it's finishing better than really, I would say, the majority of what Saturday played out. A lot of chalk on Friday, Saturday, beginning of Saturday, and finally on Sunday. I guess there's been a little bit more, excitement and turnover with regards to favorites going home. But our High Point Panthers, before facing off with Arkansas, really was the story. And as I've stated here, it's hard for me exactly to know where to start. I have a lot of emotions as I sit and record this because much of it is just really, really being proud of our program and the guys that have been a part of it and put in the work. Before I really try to put too many words on it, head coach for our High Point team, Flynn Clayman, was able to speak with the media after the game.
Obviously a fantastic game. Arkansas, fantastic team. High Point, man, really proud of our guys. I mean, we competed with the SEC champs, lottery picks, guys who are the best of the best. And our university, our team showed out. I mean, we showed out. We packed the house. We had fun. We played with confidence. These guys, we were expected to be good, but I don't think anybody expected to do, what we did here. Win 31 games, get to the tournament, advance, push the SEC champs. Just so happy for our university because I heard Coach Cal say it yesterday about our program and his program. Coaches, players can win games, but administrations win championships. And I'm talking about not just our administration, but everybody that helps High Point University, makes us special, makes us competitive. So, ever since I set foot on High Point University's campus, my life changed. I think these guys would say the same. We're sitting here before you today and we made history. And just couldn't be more proud of these guys. And what a ride.
It's kind of funny to consider that what Coach Clayman shared there towards the tail end of that, where he stated, ever since I stepped foot on High Point's campus, it's changed my life. What's interesting about that comment alone is that that's exactly why I kicked off the Proud Panthers podcast and jumped back into the media side, sport talk side of things that I find myself in today. Because when I went to High Point for the very first time, I wasn't a student. I hadn't really ever spent any time on the campus or knowing much at all about High Point University. It had very recently switched from High Point College to High Point University. And a friend of mine who was a next door neighbor invited me to go with him and his family to a High Point University basketball game. And I've talked a little bit infrequently about this here, and I don't want to try to drag it on too much, but I went to the games. They were inside of the Millis Center at the time, and a guy named Bart Lundy at that point was the head coach. It was after Jerry Steele had done so much for the program. Finally, we were in the Division I era of High Point. We were at that time in the Big South, but Bart Lundy was leading this team, and there were members, a part of the Big South, that aren't there anymore. There were things about the Millis Center that when I first started going hadn't even fully evolved out yet. By the time Dr. Cobain took over High Point University and the games were still in the Millis Center before the Cobain Center was constructed, he had added, there was things that we tried to attempt to do in that Millis Center to make it a little bit more new age, a little bit more modern, a little bit more upscale. Video boards, new locker room had been redone, just little things. But I'm talking like way back, pop-up table was put up as the box office, quote unquote, in the lobby of the Millis Center. There was only one little concession stand, and it did have Domino's pizza, some popcorn, but very little. There wasn't any kind of merchandise tent or table or anything when I first started going to the games. There was a hospitality room that people would go to, but nothing on the similar scales that you would find inside the Cobain Center today for Panther Club members. And if the crowd reached, I would say probably 1,000 people when I first started going, that was a really good attendance. And when I stepped on that campus, little did I realize probably that first trip there, but it changed my life forever. Forever. I fell in love. I knew that, I wanted to go and stay in town, be a part of High Point. This is going to sound kind of crazy, but at that time, the university didn't have gated entrances. And so me and my friend, who at this point, we had grown some, and now we're talking probably into high school years, we would drive through the campus just, free wheeling through there because I thought that was kind of cool. It's like, college life, check it out. We didn't have anything better to do. And little did I know that I would go on to attend the university. Even though I was born and raised in High Point, I was very much in the minority of anybody within the city limits that wanted to consider going to High Point University at that time. I moved in and immediately got a gig with the High Point basketball team, who I had fanboyed over from the beginning. During all those years, I was attending games and, just became a season ticket holder myself before being a student. My parents started going, and it was the thing, it was what I enjoyed, probably the most out of being a High Point community citizen. I went there. I worked at the men's basketball team. I met my wife, who I'm now married to, and we have kids. I got in and out of different job opportunities, started businesses that, would now lead to me being an entrepreneur again. It's just so much that I point back to Coach Clayman's words there and say, I'm right there with you, bro. Stepped on that campus, and it changed my life. And so a lot about what happened over the course of this first full weekend of the NCAA tournament is just mind-blowing for me. it's hard to put into words what just happened, because I would call up a local radio show called Prime Time with the Pac-Man in North Carolina, and I would attempt to talk sports talk radio with that show, talking High Point basketball. And they would laugh and they would poke fun, and I would take very brash takes, saying that this program was better than, they would give credit to it. And at this time it was a nobody program. I mean, no one knew about it. Yeah. Okay. It had some, famous alum, Tubby Smith, but he was in Memphis, or he was in Texas. Yeah. At Texas Tech at the time, way away from even the days where he came back and coached for a time at High Point. And so I try to paint this picture, not to say, hey, welcome to the bandwagon for all these new folks that have finally found out about High Point, although I wouldn't lie to you and say that does cross my mind some. It's like, seeing some local, more so local media than I would say national boys, but the local folks that all of a sudden show up and it's like, oh yeah, High Point, woo. I mean, happy to have the coverage. That's why this podcast started to begin with. But for me, it's kind of like, where you been all season? I know a follower of this Proud Panthers podcast well back when I started it, William Robertson, put up a quick post on X, just showing appreciation for Michael Lindsay with the High Point Enterprise. And I applaud somebody like Michael, because during the, normal stretches of our High Point season this year, we're talking this season, game's over, time to go to the media room. It's just two people in there, and anybody else is a part of the university staff. Myself and Michael. And Michael takes the time to ask the majority lion's share of those questions to Coach Clayman and the different players, because he's got an article to write. And Coach Clayman has been super willing with his time, sharing podcast interviews and different things that you guys have heard throughout the whole season here. And so I didn't have to ask those questions, but I applauded Michael right behind William, and would say this again now here, because I'm appreciative of the guys, just like Brian Wilmer, just like, the Big South Sports Hoops Hub, and all the stuff that they do, and the league play stuff, because, they're covering it already before it's a fad, before it's a big thing, before Chase Johnson goes viral, before Rob Martin puts people in the spin cycle and shows off his amazing talents, before Cam Fletcher comes back from very difficult times through this season and is putting on a show against SEC foe. I want to jump into the game against Arkansas and talk about some of what transpired, maybe how we ended up on the losing side. But I'll also say, before we finish up here, there's just a few different things that I'll have to say. A lot of this seems very kind of like funeral-esque, and I don't intend it to be that way, because as I already stated, we'll probably take a bit of a breather here with the Proud Panthers podcast, Teed Off Sports, and teedoffsports.com with the other podcasts I have going on. I'm actually starting a brand new daily radio show in the Triad called The Daily Pulse, here Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. on WSJS.com this week. And so I've got other stuff that's going to continue moving forward. But during that, we'll probably have a little bit of a break for the Proud Panthers podcast, let everybody kind of get back on Eastern time, the team and the players and coaches and everybody get back from the trip that they just took in Portland and debrief a little bit. Take some time to maybe interview some of the players, interview some of the coaches, get some final words on this season from them to share with you. So that'll definitely happen. And as I said, as we, I don't really want to turn the page too fast, because I really, really, really want to relish and appreciate all the good things that we just had here in this 2025-2026 season before we completely flip the page. But before you know it, transfer portal will be opened up. That happens right after the final NCAA championship game. And it'll be time to try to figure out, okay, what's on the roster next time. I already mentioned as well in the last podcast, if you missed it, I've got some games that are already on our schedule for next season that the program has given me permission to share at some point. So we'll be looking at those. So there's always going to be talk, and there's always going to be High Point basketball on my mind, because it is just the thing I'm avid about and that I follow. But it's good to also take a little bit of a breather. We're going to do that. Before I give some commentary on the game against Arkansas, and before, the final things that I want to leave folks with, here's some of the recap highlights that were put together of our High Point Panthers taking on Arkansas round of 32. Rob Martin, along with Acuff Jr., really both put on a show in this game. Here's Darius Acuff, other side of things. As you can tell, that's a top 5 NBA prospect right there. And he was bound to get his points. That right there would be the dagger, ultimately, 90-83. But we didn't stop fighting, and that has to be a talking point. Cam Fletcher, a huge game again against the Razorbacks. At this point, we're just trying to extend the game as much as we can. 91-85, 44 seconds left. But again, Braden from the logo, we just refused to give up. The fight was there the entire game. And after the game was over, John Calipari stated it. He said, he said High Point wasn't just going to give it to us. We had to go and take it. So just looking strictly at this game, I would say I felt like at no point was the moment too big. I heard Coach Clayman after the game was over share that he was a little bit maybe pleasantly surprised, it seemed, that our guys was able to stay right there with SEC champion caliber program and be right there on par with them in physicality, in terms of rebounding. And we were in this game the entire time. And for much of the season, what Coach Clayman wouldn't want our team to do is have it be a make or miss game. What that means is for the majority of the season, when, quite frankly, you've already heard me say it, probably have heard Coach Clayman share it here at this NCAA tournament. But when we're favorites and we're going up against other teams that, quite honestly, we are superior over, then we should have elements of the game that we have control over and that we impose our will, on these other teams. We did a lot of that with steals, leading the country in steal percentage. We did a lot of that on the defensive end, where we would force live ball turnovers and get deflections and get out and run in transition. But when you reach this level where you're going up against teams that are just good, and have NBA caliber players, it does become a make or miss game a little bit more. You just got to keep scoring with a guy like Acuff Jr. because he's going to get points. You can only do so much to slow him down. You can't really fully stop a guy like that. And I heard Coach Clayman say that, and it's really ultimately a great descriptor of the way it played out against Arkansas, where, you know, we had a few misses there. What you didn't see in that highlight package was there were a couple of threes that after Chase Johnston hit a couple in this game, after he had a game for the ages against Wisconsin, one that I know many of our Panthers family won't forget. It'll go down in lore of Panthers, you know, history for a long time, I'm sure. But there was a couple of shots late in this game that wasn't in that highlight package that went down and came out that could have changed the course here. It very well could have been flip-flopped, another upset. We're into the Sweet 16. And I know that was the original goal that this team set out to do. Well, let me tell you something. There's zero reason to hang your head if you're a High Point Panthers player today. You had a goal and you set out to get out of the first weekend, make it to the Sweet 16. And I understand that that's got to be hard. Yeah, you feel like just because you had that goal and you set it and it didn't go the way you wanted it to, man, maybe it's a failure. But I'm here to tell you that as I look back on this season in particular, and we talk about guys like Chase, who I already mentioned, and Cam, who was a big part of that highlight package there and a big part of this game against the Razorbacks, you just look at those two guys and you're like, hey, they had goals, I'm sure, for this season. Did that play out exactly like the goal that they had preemptively set? I don't think so. But does that mean that ultimately this season was a failure or that they failed just because they didn't hit it exactly like they planned? You know, make no mistake. I would have loved to have seen our Panthers team get to the Sweet 16. I would have loved to have seen another upset. You have a full week where, man, it's just more coverage, more publicity, more people jumping on that bandwagon I already talked about before, and a lot of things, you know, would have been really cool and special about it. But even though it didn't play exactly like we all wanted it to or planned for it to, doesn't mean that there was anything failing about it or that it wasn't still a remarkable season. The amount of change that this High Point team did for our program in just a matter of 2-3 days will be forever a difference maker. And, you know, in some cases, you could say, well, it could just be a flash in the pan. And, you know, that was an anomaly. Yeah, maybe at some universities that could be the case. I want to point, though, to some comments that Coach Clayman, we shared with you a second ago, made, but he was referencing some comments made about John Calipari. And Coach Cal basically said, like, what's really unique, special, awesome to see about High Point University is something he feels like they also have at Arkansas, not sure. But basically, hey, at High Point, you have a full school administration, president, everybody there devoted and invested in what's going on in the students and developing this basketball program. And when you have that type of support, beyond just what you have in a coaching staff that's done an awesome job this year, and beyond what you have in a roster that's been really good that you've pieced together for this year, when you have that, what you do is you set up a you set up a cornerstone, a foundation for what just transpired to build off of and continue to get greater and bigger and better. That's why we've seen sustained success, is that we have an administration, a full school support here for this. It's not just at one level. It's very much across the board. I'll give you a small little example. Anytime I've been on campus to talk about the Prowled Panthers podcast with the school and try to, again, share what I'm doing and how can we build this? How could I support? How could I do this? Well, it's not just one stop. I'm not just talking to the athletic department. I'm not just talking to the direct team or the coaches. I'm not talking just to the university itself or somebody like President Clayman, who has been a part of a podcast we've had. It's the whole everything about High Point is working cohesively to support things like this. I could go through this particular game and try to break down, what could be better, what could be different. I'm sure there was things in there that, ultimately coaching staffs will look at and be like, we could change that. Well, that's going to happen because honestly, that's how Coach Clayman really put his fingerprint on getting the job once Alan Huss left to go to Creighton. Was, Dan Hauser, Dr. Cobain doing their due diligence and looking to put a new head coach in place. Of course, reached out, had meetings with Flynn. And one of the things that really, I know, captivated the attention of Dan was that Flynn had answers. He had things about the game against Purdue in last year's NCAA tournament that he felt like we could change, things that we could do better. And he pointed to those and said, we're not going to keep everything lock, stock, and barrel exactly the same as what it has been under Alan Huss. We're going to change. We're going to evolve. We're going to do some different stuff. So I'm sure that very much some of that could be the case with this Arkansas game as well. But for me, it's not really about that at this moment. It's more about the good that I saw. And I mentioned it there in that highlight package. We didn't quit. We never gave in. We competed toe-to-toe with an SEC champion style program. So we weren't outmatched. We weren't just completely inferior, hanging by, tooth and nail just to try to barely hang on. I mean, we were in the game. We could have easily won it, in other words. I really liked how our team remained ready. There were guys in this game that hadn't played, against Wisconsin most recently, and maybe not a ton in our Big South championship against Winthrop and a couple of those games. But then finally some foul trouble happened. And this game last night against Arkansas was a track meet. Even though I don't know how the Razorbacks are doing it. They played 7 total guys last night. And really, it could have easily just been 5, 6, honestly, because of some injury stuff they've got going on. But that's just the way, Coach Cal's decided to manage things. And it was just up and down, lightning fast track meet of high flying, high scoring affair. And everybody for our Panthers team were ready, contributing positively. Like nobody, I felt like, came out flat and was like, I don't know what I'm doing out here. And our staff, I have to give tons of credit again to Flynn, but Corey, Ben, Martinez, Chops, Antoine, who am I missing? bound to be somebody. And I apologize preemptively because my mind's probably not there. Anderson, it's another one. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure I'm missing people there, but this staff, just having our guys ready, prepared, organized, everything about the whole deal. And if there's anything that I could leave about this NCAA tournament experience that was showcased on a national level, it would be, again, that everything in terms of outward publicity and the bandwagon type stuff and all the different headlines and stories, say what you will about daddy's money kind of conversations and price to get in and jacuzzis and ice cream trucks and all this other kind of stuff. Say what you will from other Big South fans that are just trying to kind of grab coattails at this point. And, oh, look at the 07 Winthrop team of old. And, oh, Longwood, maybe we're right there. I mean, everybody's trying to get a piece of that pie. Aside from all that little chippy nonsense stuff that doesn't deserve even me mentioning it like I already have, I've seen just a positive footprint made in the college basketball landscape for High Point University. Stories of Katie and Flynn, stories of Dr. Cobain, stories of flying students out and, just the support and the fans, the crowd there. I shared last episode, I'll say again, the FOMO is real, big time. So to kind of put things to bed for this season directly before we take a bit of a break and try to debrief more directly with some of the coaches and the players, I again just have to say how Prowled, and I keep using that way because that's why I chose the title way back, how proud I am as a very, very small part of High Point and its basketball program, how proud I am of this team and everybody that works so hard on it, and of my alma mater, the university that I've loved from the first time that I stepped foot on it. And I think all of those that, again, made this season unforgettable, from the players to the staffs to their families to people like Dan and Dr. Cobain and Roger Clodfelter. And, you start naming people, you're going to get yourself in hot water again here, Beck. But the truth is, Katie Snipes, I appreciate all those that worked with me throughout the course of the season directly to try to get High Point fans more informed, discussion, lots of fun things that just continue to shine a light bright as possible on something that I just enjoy personally. And that is more or less, scratching an itch that I had just to talk High Point basketball. So we absolutely look forward to more Panthers fans like myself growing in love with High Point basketball, following it. We hope that you'll share this and more of what we're doing with Teed Off Sports with other folks, and excited after a bit of a break to be back with you again on a Proud Panthers podcast.